This is Resonance, a podcast for leaders that unpacks the power of song, silence, and strategy.
We believe that great leadership begins with deep listening, not just to others, but to the still small voice within.
It's not just about being a successful leader, it's about being soulfully aligned as well.
In a world moving fast, Resonance invites you to pause and reconnect with purpose, people, and possibility.
We'll dive into some cool stories, celebrate with friends, and dig deep into the music too. 'Cause song has a way of saying what words cannot alone.
So whether you're leading a business, a team, or just trying to lead your own life with more meaning, this is Resonance.
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 Hey, everybody. Welcome to Resonance. I'm Mike Farrell. I'm joined here with my usual compatriots, Steve Azar and Randy Harrington, and we're happy to be back for season 2. And I think must be about number 5 for season 2, something along those lines, but we can't keep track of them anymore. We just keep recording them. So glad to have you join us today. You know, we live today in a world that's pretty crazy. And we're going to talk a little bit about that from a leadership perspective, not only in this episode, but also we're going to carry it through into the next episode as well. Kind of talking about the world that we live in, and as leaders, what we need to do to sort of overcome some of the challenges that we're facing today. And I'm going to start it off by just talking a little bit about a term, and I know, Randy, you've heard this term before, called VUCA. And VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguous. And it's a term that was actually generated out of the War College back in the late 1980s, early 90s.
Yes.
And them talking about the environment post-Cold War and the fact that all of a sudden we didn't have just one enemy. We had multiple fronts that we had to deal with from a military standpoint. And then Warren Bennis, one of the great godfathers of leadership thought and that kind of thing, took that term and began to start talking about how you apply that from a business perspective. And so I know, Steve, that in your work, especially in the music industry, you've seen a lot of this volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So why don't we talk a little bit about, kind of give us your perspective from what you've been through in the music industry in regards to this idea of VUCA.
Well, we've been vulnerable for quite a bit, and that starts with Napster. If you go back to 2001, and we've documented this quite a few times. I know if the listeners listening quite a bit to us and listen to all of our episodes or listen to me in the past, they're going to hear me talk about this. Not griping about it at all. It's past. It's what it was. I was so curious to understanding what it was, more curious than our major record label was, because I was on the road with a hit song, my first hit song, into my second hit song, and they didn't want to hear it. They just didn't want to hear why these records weren't selling in these markets, and all these college kids were showing up to my shows. And I was telling them, the theater people and the clubs that were 1,000 people plus or whatever we're playing, we're going, we don't know who these people, these aren't our regular customers. Country music is all about P1 listeners and the radio folks that were listening, especially back in that day. And our tickets were some of those people, but mostly college kids. And they were singing every word to every song. Well, the album wasn't selling really well in their market because they weren't buying it, because they were downloading it on Napster. So when I was trying to explain this to the record label and president and everything, originally they had said, hey, if you see that there's not when you're in a market playing and you see there's not as many records as it should be, let us know. Well, I kept telling them in every market, because they had dropped the ball and they forgot to put them in Walmart or something. Walmart was selling more records than every other outlet combined. And so we were selling half as many as we should have, and they realized it was their fault. Anyway, long story, it was such a mess. But during that time was the beginning of the streaming thing, and which changed the entire world of music. Now, let's go to the silver lining of it. As vulnerable as we were, and as many record sales as we didn't get at that time, anybody like me that came out, you had to sort of figure out, okay, what are we going to do here? Big labels, they just felt like they were invincible to this, or Big Brother film industry was going to save the day. Like they were always looking like not the film industry is not going to let anything happen that's going to happen. And now look what happened to the film industry, right? But what it's also done, guys, is allowed all this opportunity for music to be heard, except you have the deregulation of radio, and then all of a sudden, you used to not be able to own but one radio station in a market. So that way you're always competing, right? And then when you own the rock station, the country station, the R&B station, the rap station, the gospel station in one market, it made it extremely easy to be a target and be a radio person that was going to be vulnerable to a major label, or the people with the money, the bottom line. And then you were going to get a little generic in your programming because you were going to lose the sweet spot of finding a regional hit that's going to become a national hit. And that DJs and program directors lived for this back in the day. They prided themselves. So that moves on to the next thing of streaming, which gives people an opportunity to be heard. There's a lot still. There's a lot of noise now, and you got to break through the fog. So there's always a something. And then you got AI now. And AI is extremely on another level because we just had our first #1 song that was all AI generated. Wasn't a real person singing. It wasn't a real person that wrote the song. It wasn't a real band that played the music. And all of a sudden, it's a #1 record for the week or whatever. So now we're at a point with music that we're going to go, okay, now it's real on that end. How long does creativity and what we do matter? And I think the answer is always going to be about when you're in a live performance. There's no way, nothing can be better than when folks see the artist live and have the time to soak in what that act's about, what their songs are about, what their life's about, and also get to know a lot about their own lives in the crowd, because the artist wants to be able to go there with them. And so anyway, in my situation with Viking right now, and I'm getting to do the Steve Azar's Mississippi, where I play a few hits and a bunch of my Mississippi songs, I'm able to pause and slow down like we always talk, right? And I get to tell the stories that I never had the time to tell the stories, because I was always in a hurry to play more songs, and it just wasn't conducive. Now this is like full band, and you're sitting there alone with the guitar and a crowd that is just glued. And so usually when you're a little louder and you're full band and stuff, it can get a little ruckus. But in this situation, there's calm and quiet, and it's affording me the ability and the opportunity to talk about community, to talk about how you guys are saving this building, to talk about building the morale of a town that is half of its population's disappeared, and how we're dying. But we're still not, we're not afraid of dying. We feel like there's always going to be opportunity. We have faith in that. And so here comes Viking. And with the second ship will be 70 shows, like we're #1 on the Mississippi Forum and beyond. And this has been a great thing for all of us, been a blessing. And it's amazing. But you know what? Always have that river next to you, always have a shot. And so anyway, it's been a blessing, but I feel like live saves it all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you
I
covered a
know,
lot of ground there.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
I know, Randy. So
Cover a lot of ground.
this idea of VUCA, though, has now sort of morphed into something else. And I know, Randy, you talk about it. It's called BANI. So I'm going to kick it over to you and tell us what's happened to VUCA and why it's now BANI.
You bet. I'm gonna swing back into Azar's world for just a second, though, before we jump there. I think that, when I was listening to you talk about Napster and the emergence of that technology and how it was such a threshold of transformation, and you're feeling it really quickly, but the record labels and the others are like, who cares, whatever. And then all of a sudden it really does change things. I think one of the key things for me was how, if you remember the first Apple products that were the Apple Walkman kind of, that was a
The
Sony
iPod.
product. iPod, thank you very much. And then the variations on iPods. And I remember thinking that was the coolest technology in the world at the time, because wow, being able to walk around and have all that music available in one spot So not only was it about the digital music and what's happening from the artistry there, but the idea of how the music is being consumed, how it's being purchased, the entire ecosystem of the financial world that took away records and cassettes and 8 tracks and all the other infrastructure and replaced it with these portable tiny little devices that could carry gigabytes of data. And so it really did fundamentally change the ecosystem. I was a big CD collector back in the day. I loved me some CDs. I liked buying them. I liked the whole experience of them.
Yeah,
And
I got a whole case of them still.
yes, I do too. I'm sad to see them go, but I think I really wanted to underline the idea that, yeah, you were experiencing it as an artist as well as a consumer, but it was really a tipping point that changed the whole world. And what VUCA did for the War College in the 80s and 90s was explain. I mean, we all watched the news in the 80s and 90s, at least those of us who were alive then. And it was crazy pants. I mean, it was like, the whole Middle East was everything was just, it was one thing after another where it was sort of
Right.
constant. And you really didn't have a sense that there was this sort of plodding sensibility that we had with the Cold War,
It
where
was
it was
just coming off the Cold War, right? Exactly.
yeah,
Right.
just like, oh wow. So VUCA, as much as anything, was a shorthand way for the military to say, well, yeah, we're in a VUCA world now, right? So yeah, we should expect it to be volatile. We shouldn't expect it to be certain. We should have this awareness, this wariness that this is coming from. And so somewhere around 2010, a lot of the demographic and the big metrics that are out there globally began to tilt in such a way that some authors believed that it was worth it to try and update what VUCA says. And if you're looking for a really interesting book to listen to or to read, it's called Navigating in an Age or in the Age of Chaos. Navigating in the Age of Chaos. Big tip of the hat to these guys. It's a magnificent book. It comes in 2 parts. The first part explores this concept that Farrell was just talking about called BANI. It's an acronym like VUCA, BAN. And so what the heck does that stand for? Well, the B stands for brittle, and the A stands for anxious, and the N stands for nonlinear, a little bit harder to get a hold of. And even harder to get a hold of is the last one, I, incomprehensible.
This all sounds so unoptimistic.
You are correct. You are correct. And in the book, they actually caution you, like particularly on the anxiety chapter. They say, hey, we're going to lay out some really terrible stuff in this anxiety chapter. And there's a good chance you're going to get freaked out. This is my language, not theirs. And want to go like lay on the floor and drink gin. And that's just what's going to happen when you read this chapter.
Remember that remark.
And I don't know, but you do. You listen to it and you're and then at the end of the chapter, we're like, we're sorry we had to do that to you. That we sort of had to put you through this ringer of why people are feeling so much anxiety. So the first thing I want to underline about BANI and VUCA is that all these things are really is a mental model that allows us to look at the world and go, yeah, things are really, really different. The other thing I want to underline about what you said at the top of your rant,
It was
Azar,
right.
I know
is
that.
this idea that you weren't bitter about this. You saw it as an evolution that was going to happen, that is happening, and it
No,
didn't matter what
It
you
was
felt.
more confusing than anything.
Yeah, it's
You didn't have an
confusing.
answer for it. You didn't have an
Yeah.
answer. So, yeah, I mean,
It wasn't like Napster was out there trying to be evil. They were just doing their thing and bringing this. They were inserting a new technology in the same way AI has just kind of come on the scene. I mean, that was the thing that blew my mind about AI. It was like it wasn't here and then it was. And it wasn't like a slow ramp. It was within 2 months, there's 200 million people using this technology. And it was like, holy smokes, I've never seen, and nobody has ever glommed onto a new technology that quickly and that massively.
do you remember
So-
when Lars, back up for a second, just stay for a second. You remember when Lars from Metallica, he became the face of this. He was
That's right.
smart guy, like really
Yeah, he
smart
saw it.
guy. And man, I'm telling you, it got uncomfortable for him because, it was like him against the world in a way.
What?
Nobody understood what he understood. I mean, and so, he was important for us, but it'd have been great if he.
It's a really apt point because guess what? guess who's making money doing live performances right now? And that is Metallica.
Exactly.
And they have not backed off. In fact, they doubled down on performance. And this is where money and the fan base is, because this is the other thing that music does, is it brings together tribes of people.
Yeah.
I'm going through, a time of reflection as Bob Weir passed, the rhythm guitarist for the Grateful Dead and a hero of mine for many years. And so for the crowd of the Grateful Dead, just like for the crowd of Metallica and for Azarians, it's about seeing the people you know and love when they come to the shows, right? It is about this group of people. Certainly Jimmy Buffett had this in spades, this idea of the parrot heads. Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, your talk was really covered what we're trying to say about this. And all I want to underline as we go into this is, why do I think you should read Navigating in an Age of Chaos or listen to it? Because it will help you to have a shorthand in your company and in your family and in your world to say, we're living in a BANI world, friends. I'm talking to my kids about this. So what does BANI say? They say it started in 2010, the BANI age of brittle, anxiety, nonlinearity, and incomprehensibility. All of this began roughly around 2010. And they think this is going to run for 30, 40, 50 years. So this isn't something where we're going to go, okay, well, 1 or 2 election cycles and it'll be done. No. So what we're talking about are thresholds of change that are global.
Mm-hmm.
They're comprehensive. There's nobody that is not being touched by BANI. And so let's break it down just a little bit. We're going to pause for just a second and talk about the word brittle. Brittle means brittle. And what they're saying in the book is, an institution is brittle when it worked, and it's still working, but everybody in the institution knows that if one thing goes wrong, the whole thing's going to crack. The whole thing's going to break. And if it does break, it will not be repairable in the way that it was. And so what's an example of something that's brittle? Our energy grid falls into this category. Just talk to the people in Texas, right? And they've got this ancient grid. They're putting way too much stress on it. The grid fractures and breaks. And so what the people that are working with the grid are saying, we can't just fix this.
Can't put duct tape on it, right? You gotta be something else, right?
Yes. So what BANI is saying is that healthcare and government services and institutions and businesses are all becoming more brittle. And they're saying people are brittle too. And we've all dealt with people, right? And you see them, and you see that person, well, they're okay right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think COVID probably accelerated that significantly, because all of a sudden we had to deal with something that none of us ever dreamed we'd ever have to deal with, certainly not in our lifetimes anyhow. And all of a sudden, you had all kinds of mental issues, not physical issues from COVID, mental issues from COVID, with anxiety and depression and loneliness and all of those things that only accelerates that idea of brittle.
And they're still manifesting now.
In a family setting that I grew up in, my mom and dad working together and all that, when I would start to come in, if I even thought about being brittle, I mean, listen, we love peanut brittle, but I'm going to tell you something. If I thought about it, my mom would get quiet because she was the one. My dad was just softer and all that. But when my dad got mad like twice in his life, and I remember, those are the 2 times. Mom was always mad at me, but when she was also always uplifting in the way of she just didn't believe in that. She was like, "Are you done?" I went, "Yeah, I'm done. Suck it up." Sorry that your ankle's broken. I'll see you at 4:00 practice. You know what I mean? Like, and that was it. Like, just quit griping and get back to it. So I don't think my mom and dad, that generation, could have even dealt with this whole BANI thing. Am I wrong?
Yeah. I mean, certainly when we talk about, the real baby boomers and the greatest generation, they were all about laying down railroad tracks,
Exactly.
Right.
stability, And this is going to carry us into the future, and it's going to do it in a stable way.
Yeah.
It's the socially conscious way, in the sense that this was the emergence of the middle class, right? And it was a really kind of a beautiful thing. And so, yeah, I mean, these are people that, yeah, they're spinning in graves right now, because it's like this. Who would have thought that we would be having conversations and thinking some of the things that we're
So
thinking
does
right
this mean with Bonnie, do y'all feel like that we've gotten more vulnerable and softer as a society? More because listen, I can cry in a minute at the most beautiful emotional movie, or when things just come together. I don't know, man. I'm a sucker for it, so I can go there. You know, I am an emotional person that writes about all that stuff. I understand that, but I also grew up, you know, participating in every sport I could and understanding tough coaches and all that. I'm just wondering, what was my question? I mean, yeah, you got me. What did I just ask? Come on,
Vulnerability.
you know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, like,
yeah.
so
And Mike, what are you thinking about that? I mean, I think the vulnerability seems to come from the fact that we've lost a sense of personal agency. And what I mean by that is, there was something about your grandfather and great grandfather, because they were out doing stuff. I mean, my all my grandparents had gardens.
Right.
all ours did.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, guys, what I guess the question was, have we gotten softer as a society? And is that a bad thing? But have we?
Well, sure. I mean, take a look at mortality rates, and how the fact that none of our hips work anymore because we've all been sitting for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and the idea that your great grandfather would have been sitting all day, couldn't imagine that.
No, no way.
Never in a million years. So, yeah, I mean, there is a certain vulnerability to what's going on. And there's a kind of, here's another big $10 word, inexorability, which just means there's a lot of stuff going on that we feel like we can't stop. It is inexorable if it is going to happen. And like Bill Gates said back in his book, The Road Ahead, many years ago, he said, one of the things that is inexorable is that consumers are going to move from being in a synchronous service model to being in an asynchronous service model. And all that's basically saying is, in a synchronous service model, the customer has to adapt to the business and follow the business's rules in order to be served. I have to go to the bank during banking hours. I have to bring my documentation. I have to wait in line. I'm going to follow the rules of the bank. That's the way that happens. That is synchronous. If I'm going to go to the airport's going to tell me when to fly. I don't get to fly when I want to fly. I fly when they tell me to want. That's synchronous. But there are very, very few synchronous businesses anymore. Right now, almost everything is asynchronous. I should be able to get it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I should be able to get it all over the world. I should be able to get it at my price. I should be able to get it on Amazon, and it should be able to be shipped to me in one piece.
Yeah,
To rub it in.
yeah, please all.
Those of you ordering the I don't have to be meat on Monday Bloody Mary mix, which I highly encourage you to do, but it's a crapshoot at this point. But my point, though, is that so Bill Gates saw the inexorability of this move to 24/7, 365 customer service. And what he said was, and you know what the outcome of that is? The power has shifted from being in the hands of the business to being in the hands of the customer.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Boom. So that's what's gone on here. And the same thing happened with Napster, where power was wrested away from the labels and put into God knows what distributed tech
Yeah,
bro business, where we're all listening now
yeah,
this way. And this is the other thing. I mean, I remember when earplugs became a thing, when earphones became a thing, everybody had them in all the time. And that was new. We used to talk to each other on public transportation, and now you get on public transportation and the expectation is, idiot, you don't have your headphones?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
What
Right.
a
Yeah.
phony. Getting on a
Yeah.
plane without headphones?
Everybody, I was just on a subway because my daughter made me get on a subway and in New York. So, and there was no communication with anybody. I mean, like we didn't even
Yeah.
communicate with each other. I mean, like
Right.
I'm going
Yeah.
like
You don't even
looking up.
want to make eye contact.
No, everybody's in their own little bubble, and you're right. They got headphones on and this and that. And but yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. You said that.
I think the interesting thing about this is that all of this, I think, leads to the fact that we've lost control.
Yes, we've
Like,
lost aging.
if you look back to our parents and our grandparents and their grandparents, and, I think they felt like at least they had some sense of control or at least certainty in their lives. What I think we have lost, especially over these last several years, is we've lost this idea that we have any control whatsoever and that there's any certainty whatsoever. I mean, all you got to do is read the news every day and realize that, who knows, what somebody's going to do next,
Are we reading the news or the views? Do they have news?
Well, and that's the problem. You don't know what's what. And so
Yeah.
I think that, but as we think about from a leadership perspective, as we think about how we deal with this, I think it's really, really important that this idea of community and stability, these are two of the Benedictine principles, are so important today. Because what it does, the stability piece gives us grounding. We have values, we have morals, we have ethics, we live through virtue. Those types of things give us a grounding to at least give us the ability to kind of sway in the wind without the roots coming out. And
So true.
I think the other piece is the idea of community. Steve, you talk about we're softer. Well, we are softer, and I think that's why it's so important that we create communities, whether that's at work, whether that's in our lives, in our families, whatever the case may be, creating the communities where we can lean on each other in these times. And I think that it's interesting in the world of organizational development, you see a lot of work being done now on through positive psychology on this idea of creating positive organizations that that are building community. Kim Cameron and Bob Quinn talk about this all the time, in that we need to have, in order to have successful businesses today, we have to have a positive environment, we have to have a positive culture, we have to have positive relationships, we have to have positive communication. Those are the things that need to happen within an organization, and those things are the things that we can ground ourselves in order to be able to deal with some of this stuff that's going on.
You make a great point early on. I just want every one of those points were wonderful, but you said something. So you imagine the creation of a song or creation of a record. Well, no record is good. No record becomes great unless you have a great song. So that is your foundation. Those are your core values. Those are what you're talking about, your stability. When you're building this big building and skyscraper, what do you have to make sure that everything in the ground is right before you go up? And it's the same with a golf swing or a baseball swing. Now they're finding a tennis swing. They're finding out that the ground creates all of this power, right? And when you can use it to your advantage, you hit the ball, your ball swing speed and you hit it further out of the park, everything, you become stronger. So, but those core values to me, help you not be brittle, help you not be all of what BANI stands for. Because if you've got that, then I just feel like you don't feel the overwhelmness that so many people are having right now. Also, community itself. Now, I know kids, they communicate different. We have kids, so they communicate different than they did when we had to get together or get
Right.
on the phone, and we couldn't have if we couldn't have a friend long distance because you couldn't afford it, right?
Yeah,
You couldn't get on
right.
long distance. You had to go see them, and when you were together, there was constant catching up, or there was constant conversation, or there was constant building relationships. And now, because you've got this, and all this and this and this, it's just a different game now with that. So how do we have the need for communication that's so important to make everything just a better place, and you not feeling anxiety because somebody's there for you. You're not alone. All these things that there's so many things in my mind right now, but I think you guys get the point. Like, you
Yes.
have these communicative skills and building these relationships that help you get through life. How in the heck can you avoid this?
So it is a characteristic of human nature that somewhere in our minds, we are aware of the fact that being in a state of solitude is dangerous. Our lizard brain from way back when knows that we survive better when we are with community. And we can trace this to evolutionary biology and everything else. We just know humans have achieved whatever they've achieved because we've done things in coordination with one another and created communities and capabilities that rely on all kinds of different perspectives. I mean, the simple idea of, using simple communication to have circular views of your encampment. So there's always somebody watching in every direction.
Right.
And so just that simple thing of, okay, you go watch over there and I'll watch over here, just that little bit of coordination increases security for everybody. So we know deep in our DNA that we need each other. And so there is this awkwardness that happens on the New York City subway where we know we need each other. And somehow the best thing we can do for each other right now is not to cause a disturbance, not to be negative. It's about what we don't do more than what we do. And I know you guys are like me. How many times do you think, oh, I'm going to open the door for this person, or, oh, I'm going to say something nice to this person? And then you check yourself because you're like, no, maybe
Maybe
I
you're
don't
going to be uncomfortable. Well, I do it anyway.
Yeah.
want.
Well, and I think that gets to the idea. I mean, Randy, you talk about security and safety. It's virtually impossible to create trust and cooperation without that feeling of safety and security.
Yes.
You have to have it. But I think the other piece of that, and I'll throw another monk principle out there, it's intention. We have to teach people to be intentional. We have to teach people to say, need this communicate. We're social animals. We need this communication. We need to build this community. And it might not be very comfortable when we start to do it. But I think as people engage, they begin to see that, okay, this is a good thing. This is something that we want to continue to do because we realize that we're better together, not separate. And
Yes.
I think that's, if you look at look at what's going on in our country today. I mean, all of the things, without going down the political rabbit hole here, all of the things that are going on today, we need to get back to this whole idea of talking to each other. And then, of course, as you guys have heard me say ad nauseum, listen with the ear of our hearts,
Yeah.
and really do it with empathy and compassion, because that's where communication is built. That's how we begin to lean on each other to get us through this brittle anxiety, nonlinear, all of that BANI environment. When we're working together and when we're doing it together, it becomes at least there's at least hope. There's at least faith
Yeah.
that we can
Yeah.
overcome it.
Yeah.
The roots piece is a big piece too, the spiritual roots piece there. And so one of the things we can do to just keep our audience right now from feeling like they need to go lay on the floor and drink gin is what we need to do is say, you know what is the antidote to brittle? And the answer is in the second half of the book, and we're going to talk about this a little more in another podcast, but the word that they offer instead of brittle is bendable. Instead of building a business where you're going to build this big high tower, we're going to have 10,000 people there and it's going to be a thing. You begin to see organizational design as being much more, and this is my favorite word, it's probably my word of the year, flexive. Flexive. To be flexive is to build that kind of yoga capability into your athlete. That's the way I think of it. It's like, yes, I want the best running back out there. I want the best pitcher out there or whatever, but I also want this person to be able to have the resilience that comes with
Right.
flexive capabilities and the dynamics that come with that. So it's not about a retreat. In other words, dealing with BANI isn't about saying, well, we can't do anything now. We just have to go sit in our hole and hope for the best and put on our
Right.
helmet and dig our trenches a little deeper. That's not it at all. It's in fact, just like you said, we need to build better relationships, stronger relationships, safer relationships. We need to signal safety as much as we can. You won't be harmed here. Say
Right.
what you want and I can take it, right? I'm not going to, the worst I'll do is leave, right? Which I have done, but that's because, there's no possibility of dialogue,
Right.
so when that happens, there's no reason to just get pelted. But the idea though of bendable, being flexible. And when you say that to a leader, they'll go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. I can imagine ways to enhance resilience in the organization. And that's really what we're looking to do as we know, okay, the world's going to have this brittle world. So that means we have to be more bendable.
Let me just, while you're talking about bending, let me just whip out some lyrics here. My
Do
buddy
it.
Matt Warren and Gary Allen, really great recording artists. Song Bend. I'm still learning how to bend, how to let you in. In a world full of tears, we'll conquer all our fears. I'm still learning how to fly. I want to take you higher. I'll be there till the end. I'll be your lover and your friend. I'm still learning how to bend. I know the lyrics feel like whatever, but when you hear Gary sing it or you hear Matt sing it, I've seen it, Matt many times next to me, and it's simply put,
It is.
but it's right.
Those lyrics, though, say everything we were just talking about.
But the
It's about
lyrics, exactly, the lyrics are spot on.
yeah, you're going to be safe. I don't, and it's the other thing is there's a great deal of humility in this. In that,
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I'm still learning how to do this. I'm not sure I'm as good at it as I
which
can
is
be.
the key to all of that. The still
It
learning
is.
part. And
And that's gotta be, that's all Benedictine all the time, my friend.
yeah,
That is,
yeah, yeah.
That
Well,
would be,
I mean,
that
you're
would be
doing the
called the
monk
ladder
happy
of
dance right
humility.
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's special to be next to Matt when he's doing it as the songwriter. You know, Gary obviously is the star and the songwriter, but man, it's an amazing thing. And as simple as the words are, there's a lot of complexity there because it's built, it's just stacks of emotion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And don't
Yeah.
forget there's a melody attached to it. So it's beautiful, but it's being in the moment and knowing they both went through a tough time in their lives, which I know personally. And I know both of them, they convey that to their audience. So it makes this really big moment of, is an emotional moment. But you're right. Bending is going to be important. You know, football, we talked about this, I think, in the last episode. Football teams, great defenses that bend, but somehow you
Right.
can't score on them. You know, they bend, they get down the field and all of a sudden things tighten up and you get in the red zone and you're done. Like
Yep.
that's as far as we're bending. I mean, it's interesting.
It is. And so the simple idea that comes from those lyrics is that, you know, as we talk about this BANI business, sure, we can talk about it at a global level and we can talk about it at a big corporate level, small business level. But I think really the best place to deal with this BANI business is inside your own heart right now and ask yourself, to what degree am I brittle? Am I feeling brittle? And, you know, we're going through a whole bunch of change in our household. And what I admire or love more than anything else is when somebody in the household says, just tell me what you're seeing that isn't right, or just let's have that open conversation, as opposed to having eggshells all over the floor. Like, you know, you
Yeah.
can't tell me this. When somebody tells me, no, give me criticism.
You
Tell me what I can
be
do
a little
better.
more specific for our listening audience. You have your daughter and son-in-law living in your house.
Yes. With a 2-year-old.
And a
Yeah.
two-year-old,
Two golden retrievers.
while they're and that's right. How many golden retrievers?
Who are there? Yeah.
2. And while they're getting their house ready.
Salmon kept. Yes.
So
yes.
you should probably let everybody know it's just not
Yeah. So, I mean, and
just Patty you're talking.
yeah, just we're sort of on each other's, we're in each other's turf.
Yeah,
They
sure.
don't have turf. So they're trying to be respectful of ours and I'm trying to be respectful of theirs. But in all of this dance that's going on,
Yeah.
what really seems to work is when somebody says, let's just talk about that and figure it
Right.
out.
I'm just having Patty's back is all. That's all.
Yeah.
Second of all, let's talk about that in the business for you guys. When y'all are consulting, you know, these businesses and stuff, can you go about it like you talk about, you know, these things that each person has to have working for themselves before the unit can be complete and you can be successful? What happens when 2 or 3 people out of 20 aren't going to get there? I mean, what happens to the business model there and the rate of success and the opportunity that lies ahead?
Yeah. I think that certainly there is always, when in a team environment, it's important that people are all on the same page. And there's no question that, you know, as you work with teams and build collaboration and those kinds of things, you know, you're always going to have a person or two kind of dig their heels in and say, no, I don't think that's right. I'm not going to do that. I think the challenge is that the team needs to come together and say, for the good of the team, not for the good of you as an individual, for the good of the team, we need you to go along with this. We need you to support this direction that we're going, whatever it is we're trying to do.
Right.
And, sometimes it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, well, then you probably got somebody that shouldn't be on that team. And, but I think the other piece of that, go ahead, Randy.
Team ability is
Yeah.
what you're talking about, Mike. And
Yep.
and so to the degree that that person is not willing to sublimate their own demands to the team's demands, they don't have team ability. To the degree that they're not putting mission first, they don't have team ability, right? So, and if you don't have team ability, you can't be on the team. And so
Right.
you're maybe not a bad person. We don't need to go there. It's not like I have to I smite you and send you off. That's not it. But it's just, no, you can't be on the team because the team requires this sense of shared purpose and focus. And if you're not doing it, thank you for telling me.
I think the key to this whole conversation we're having today still goes back to each person in the organization having this core and these being empathetic and having these values that hold you up when everything else goes awry and everything else is changing so fast. And if you've got that, you can handle change. It can hurt. Change can hurt. It can hurt you in every which way, but it allows you to repair better than break and be brittle, and it bends you, right? But at the same time, you're able to get your shape back. And I just think that what you talked about earlier, Mike, for me, during this whole conversation, and then you adding all of that, Randy, to it, to me, that is the most important thing right now in this whole business world and in a family life, on a team, in a team sport. And if you don't have everybody sort of on that same page, you can't win the natty,
Yeah. And I think one quick follow-up point, and then we'll wrap this one up. But the other piece of that, you have to have that inner stability. In addition, the leader has to communicate what that outward vision is. Where are we going?
Mhm.
Because you got to have everybody on the bus in the right seat, as Jim Collins writes about in Good to Great. You have to have them in the right seat, but if you don't know where the bus is going, it doesn't really make any difference. And so I think the other piece of that is making sure before you ever get to building up that team, what's the vision? Where are we going? How are we going to get there?
It's, some of the
And
stuff
why
he
are
talks
we
about,
going there in the first place?
the what ifs and the if ends are all
Yeah.
answered.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take us home, Randy.
Yep.
Well, I'm excited about talking about BANI because when I look at the world, I shake my head and think about what is the world my granddaughter is going to be living in. And it is incomprehensible to me. And so then I get, drawing on the conversations that we've had here, I realize how important community is. I realize how important it is for us to have a shared sense of awareness about core values and really testing those values, really not just putting up there like signs on the wall, but really living them. The lived experience of values seems to be really, really it. And I think it's what we feel like we have lost some in our culture, both in terms of relationships with parents. I really feel for young parents these days who are living in the dance of how do I get daycare and what TV shows can I show my kid and not show my kid, and what about my kid going to play with other kids? Is that a bad? I mean, it's just crazy what these
Right.
parents are having to deal with
Yeah, our
these days.
parents just sent us on our bikes all day to
Yeah,
go
right.
play.
Exactly.
We did
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
be in at dark. I mean, like
yeah,
they
just
had
make
no
sure you're
idea
home when
what
it's time to go to bed.
we came back dirty and sweaty and smelly and and
And if you didn't, what were you doing? That was big
Yeah.
trouble.
playing. We were getting to know each other. We were playing. We were testing ourselves.
Right.
There you go.
Right. Yep.
And
Yep.
that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more in our next one. But I
Yeah.
think for this one, if we can talk about BANI and say, you know what, it's out there, it's real, but we can be more bendable, I think we're on the right path.
I agree.
I would agree. Yep, I would agree. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Resonance. We're going to kind of continue this conversation in our next episode. So if you didn't quite get enough this time,
Yeah.
we'll kind of go through the next step of this. But again, you can get Resonance on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Google
Watch us
Play,
on
all of them. Yep.
Watch us here on YouTube. Yep.
Otherwise, go to resonanceleader.com. All the links are right there. And we certainly look forward to joining you again on the next episode. And thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
Later on.
Thanks for listening to Resonance. Find us at resonanceleader.com.